Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a thrilling, yet somehow totally overlooked story about the brilliant woman who practically single-handedly proved that the automobile was actually a viable thing. I mean, we rely on cars so heavily today, right? But getting the world to trust them, that required a massive leap of faith. And honestly, that leap wasn't taken by the person who invented the car, but by the person brave enough to actually drive it out into the wild. So let's think about this for a second. When you think of early automotive pioneers, who comes to mind? You're probably picturing the guys whose names are literally plastered across the backs of our cars today: Henry Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, or Karl Benz. We naturally associate the dawn of the automotive age with these famous inventors. But when it comes down to who actually got behind the wheel and took the world's very first road trip, well, the answer usually surprises people. Because that answer is Bertha Benz. Back in 1888, she embarked on an absolutely epic, entirely unprecedented journey that, no exaggeration, forever changed the automotive industry. She wasn't just sitting in the passenger seat, she was the driver, the mechanic, and basically the ultimate visionary for what a car could become. What she pulled off in 1888 was an absolute masterclass in taking experimental, frankly terrifying technology and proving its worth to a highly skeptical public. Let's look at the timeline to really set the scene here. In 1885, Karl Benz invents the first practical modern automobile. But then, crickets. There's this 3-year gap where this vehicle was essentially just a patented invention gathering dust. It desperately needed a bold promotional push to prove it was actually a practical mode of transportation. Just to give you an idea of how early 1888 really was, the very first organized automobile race didn't even happen until 1895. And by the way, the winning car in that race, it was traveling at a blistering speed of just 15 miles per hour. So Bertha taking this road trip in 1888 was years ahead of any organized public automotive event. Let's define exactly what she was driving. It was called the motorwagen, invented by her husband, Karl Benz, who, fun fact, is also known in historical records as Carl Friedrich Michael Valiant. The motorwagen was the first patented, practical modern automobile. But here's the catch. The general public did not understand this thing, and they certainly didn't trust it. To them, it was noisy, strange, and entirely unproven on long stretches of road. So Bertha made a courageous, basically unilateral decision. To prove to the world that her husband's invention actually worked, she set a clear goal. She was going to promote the motorwagen by taking it on a journey to visit her mother's house. Now, I know that sounds like a totally normal weekend errand to us today, but at the time, attempting to cover a long distance in a motorized carriage was kind of like strapping yourself into a modern-day experimental spaceflight. Without hesitation, Bertha assembled her crew. She was the driver, and her passengers, her 2 sons. They loaded into the motorwagen and set off through late 19th century Germany on this unprecedented adventure. It was a massive leap of faith. I mean, imagine stepping into an open carriage powered by experimental technology with virtually no safety nets in place. And the sheer scale of her journey is just staggering. She drove 66 miles across rough, unpaved terrain. 66 miles! That was an absolutely monumental feat at the time. You have to remember, roads back then were designed for horses and carts, not for sputtering experimental motor wagons. And it took them approximately 7 hours to complete this grueling endurance test. 7 hours sitting on an open carriage, navigating unpredictable roads, and managing an engine that the rest of the world thought was nothing more than a dangerous novelty. It was an incredible test of both human willpower and mechanical endurance. But as the journey dragged on, Bertha faced a serious mechanical crisis that brings us to the real climax of our story. Well, ask yourself, how exactly do you safely stop a heavy, moving motor wagon? Bertha had to rely purely on the primitive mechanical friction brakes that were built into the car. And, they simply weren't holding up under the stress of a 66-mile journey. This is where Bertha's absolute genius shines. Step 1. She realized the vehicle's wooden brakes were failing to operate to their full potential. They were wearing down way too fast. Step 2, instead of throwing in the towel, she conceptualized a mechanical solution right there, on the fly. Step 3, she essentially invented brake pads to safely stop the vehicle. She identified a critical safety flaw and invented the physical solution mid-road trip to give the car the friction and stopping power it desperately needed to safely continue. That grueling 66-mile journey left an incredible automotive legacy. By completing the trip and literally inventing brake pads along the way, Bertha successfully promoted the car. She proved its immense practicality and showcased the invention to the public in the most undeniable, spectacular way possible. Because of her sheer success, Karl Benz's company finally gained traction, eventually merged with another manufacturer, and led directly to the creation of the globally recognized Mercedes-Benz brand. This whole story brilliantly illustrates the ultimate historical partnership. On one side, you have Karl Benz, who had the brilliant engineering mind to invent the first patented practical modern automobile in 1885. But on the exact same token, you have Bertha Benz, who had the vision and the bravery to take the first road trip in 1888. She proved to the world that it actually worked, and invented a crucial safety component, the brake pad, to make it survivable. Without her, his invention might have just remained a curious, unproven patent gathering dust. So the next time you're out on the road taking a sharp corner or coming to a sudden halt in traffic, take a quick moment to appreciate the history right under your foot. The fundamental safety feature stopping your car, giving you control, and keeping you safe was conceptualized by a pioneering woman halfway through the world's very first road trip in 1888. Which leaves us with this final, fascinating question to ponder long after this explainer wraps up. What other incredible, overlooked pioneers are hiding right behind the dashboard of our daily routines? Every single piece of technology we take for granted today was once a crazy experimental idea, championed by someone brave enough to test it out in the real world. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep looking for that hidden history in your everyday life.